This is Business Women Australia podcast, featuring industry leaders who bring their wealth of expertise from diverse areas to help you build a successful business. Now, onto the show. And welcome to another episode of Business Women Australia podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Now, my guest today says if a ticketing platform can help close the education gap, what could the rest of the world do? I wonder. No doubt we're going to answer that question today with my guest. And joining me on today's show is Jenny Chung. Jenny, she is the head of distribution of Humanitix, which is the world's first not-for-profit ticketing platform, which is based in Australia. Now, she grew up in South Korea and New Zealand, and she practiced as a solicitor for 3.5 years in Auckland before moving to Sydney and joining the Humanitix team. Now, she's passionate about maximising the positive impact that she can have on the world through her career, and hence finds her role incredibly fulfilling. Now, she believes that for-purpose social enterprises are the next evolution of businesses and charities, and that this model, combined with scalable technology, well, that is one of the most powerful ways of generating sustainable social impact. Now, on today's show, Jenny is going to share how to pivot careers and chase your passions, why supporting education for minority groups such as young girls in low-income countries and Indigenous students is one of the most effective ways to create positive intergenerational change, as well as insight into the recovery of the event industry from the impacts of COVID-19, and so much more. Welcome to the show, Jenny.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be able to talk a little bit more about the work that you do and obviously the company that you support. But I'm really interested that you lived for a while and that you came from Auckland, which is my hometown. And so done amazing things. What led you down the path to where you are today? We said in the introduction that you were originally a solicitor for 3.5 years. What prompted your pivot, your transition?
Yeah, great question. And I'm actually in Auckland at the moment. I've made most of the Trans-Tasman bubble and hopped over. And we've got a Auckland office here at Humanitix as well. So yeah, really nice to bring it back to the roots and spend time with friends and family while also doing what I love here as well. So yeah. Yeah, so I practiced as a solicitor in the environment and planning field for about 3.5 years after going through law school. It was a really interesting field and really intellectually stimulating as well, a great beginning to my professional career also. But I think just in the day-to-day side of things, I didn't really feel that the work that I was doing was particularly meaningful or helping other people. And so I moved to Sydney about 2.5 years ago. And I actually used it as an opportunity to really reflect on what I wanted to do in my life and with my career. So yeah, part of that journey was actually looking into resources that were available online or community groups where people were doing interesting things in terms of the tech industry, in the social impact industry. And the stars aligned, and I actually ended up being introduced to one of the co-founders of Humanitix, which is how I ended up in the role that I'm here today. So I think the key thing was really questioning myself and my motives and what I wanted to do, and integrating that into my approach at the next step of my career.
Yeah, which I love that you shared that, because that beautifully segues into the first point that you wanted to talk more about, which was how to pivot careers, chase your passions. I think with what has been going on around the world, whilst there are certainly challenges and complex situations that people have had to confront, what it can often do in those situations is have us go or come to a crossroad and say, what can I do now? Is there something that perhaps I've been putting off that now it gives me the opportunity to be able to chase? So looking back, what were some of the pivotal points for you, or what were some of the questions? What were some of the things that you did that helped with that transition?
Yeah, a key concept that I was introduced to actually by one of my friends when I was starting to tackle this issue or question was the concept of ikigai. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. It's the Japanese concept where it's as a diagram, it's actually illustrated as like a Venn diagram of concentric circles, and in life there is many things that bring us satisfaction. So it might be purpose behind what you're doing, like your social circles and community sense of belonging, family, those kind of things. So yeah, I really looked at all of the aspects of my life where I needed fulfillment, and especially in terms of my career as well. Which one of those circles did I want fulfilled within my career? And
Yes.
then, yeah, kind of looking at it from a macro level, work down towards, okay, this industry could fill this gap. This could fill this other like need. And yeah, so looking at that kind of concept, and then asking myself, what can I practically do, was a really, I think a pivotal moment, and yeah, guided me in that way.
What's interesting too about Humanitix, and I know you're going to talk a little bit more about what they do and how people can find out more. You know, sometimes the answers that we're looking for is not even in our bandwidth yet. And isn't it interesting that when you start exploring more about self-awareness, what really what lights me up, what motivates me for the day, and maybe going out and asking people and getting more clear, and all of a sudden you recognized, well, hang on a minute, this company or this tech company in this instance is really working in an area that I feel that I really can get behind. And so often the answers that we are looking for, we're not even aware of the concept yet. Is that what you found too?
Yeah. And that actually also reminds me, I think one of the questions that I asked myself was, what's a great organization or a company that that aligns with my values? What kind of, if the whole world was my oyster, which
Which it is.
organizations or companies would I want to work for? That's a really, really great way of looking at it as well.
Yeah. I think also too, clarity, as you know, as you were speaking and sharing kind of the steps that you took, one of the things that became very apparent to me is there was clarity. You were starting to get clarity. Curiosity led you to that clarity. And how often we can remain stuck or uncertain because we haven't actually gone out and asked questions. Did you find that having conversations, or did you have conversations with others too, or was it more of a kind of soul searching? What was a balance of both?
Yeah, I think it was a balance of both. Definitely, in the beginning of the journey, especially moving to a new country and city, I was more keen to default to what I was comfortable with. But when I spoke to a few people in my network and my friends, they challenged me more to really think like, hey, use this opportunity to actually explore what you want to do. It's not many days or not many times in your life where you're gonna have this opportunity. So use it. And so that kind of also led me to reflect and go away and think about what I wanted to do as well. I would say a bit of both.
Yeah. What I love about what I'm hearing, you have the conversation. I mean, many people don't know this. I have mentioned it across a couple of episodes, but if you haven't heard, my previous career was in the career industry, and there were many people that we would often work with who were pivoting careers. A job that they used to love no longer fulfilled them. And often it was because some of the things that you mentioned, the core values of the organization changed, leadership changed. But one of the things that I have found, which we're really starting to see with the younger generation coming through, whereas I know that my parents and maybe even your parents and older generations never really thought of, what are you talking about, loving the work that you do? You just go to work and you do your job and that's it. However, studies have shown, and we sense it, if we feel that there's a sense of fulfillment and purpose, we're contributing to something much bigger than ourselves and impacting the world, that becomes so much more purposeful and meaning in our life. Is that something that is important to you? I mean, it sounds as if it is, but that's important to you moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think back in university as well, I was part of some student organizations where they give you these surveys on what motivates you. And I would always get the highest motivator was actually the meaning and purpose behind whatever I did. It's different for, different people. But that was clearly something that was really important to me. Hence why it was really important for me to find a value aligned organization and find fulfillment in the work that I do day to day.
Yeah. One of the other things that I found was really important too was that sometimes in the workplace environment, you may not be able to tick all of the boxes, some of the boxes, but not necessarily all. But then externally in other involvements, you can tap into some of those things that really motivate you. And I think this segues beautifully into the next point about, why supporting education for minority groups such as young girls in low income countries, Indigenous students is one of the most effective ways to create positive intergenerational change. Speak a little bit more about this, because someone might be watching and listening today and maybe not be able to have this so much in their workplace, but certainly be able to support this outside of work. So share a little bit more, Jenny.
Yeah, so the social impact sector has been something that I've been looking into, both personally for a while, and now at a professional level, which is really rewarding. And I think a lot of the times there are many charities and non-profit organizations that are doing amazing work, but sometimes they are addressing more the symptoms of the problem as opposed to addressing the root cause. And having, had really quality education myself, like in Korea and New Zealand, I can really appreciate the power of education and the opportunities that it provides to those who have been empowered through that. And there is more and more research that shows if you are able to provide quality education to the underprivileged groups, so that's actually often those in the lower socioeconomic groups, so minority groups, you are able to break the cycle of poverty a lot of the time, and it's actually a longer term change that you're able to create as opposed to just a short-term solution or band-aid solution.
I mean, if you think of us living here in Australia, obviously where I'm based, and you're in Auckland, New Zealand at the moment, consider that there are some places in the world where the ability to tap into education, to be educated, to be able to have choices, and this is an area that I want to study, to even contemplate that this is not the case for many people around in other countries is unfathomable, isn't it? But being able to support that, a story that I heard a number of years ago, Jenny, was a colleague of mine who was in the US. She supported a nonprofit who would go into various developing countries and build toilets, a toilet next to a school, because so many young girls would not go to school because of certain times of the month and so forth. There was no areas where they could go, and yet when they planted or put these toilets in the schools, it opened up the possibility for so many of these girls to go there too, from a toilet, that kind of thing. So this is really, it sounds as if Humanitix really works in this area. Share a little bit more about their work and how they're really impacting across this particular area.
Yeah, so Humanitix is a really interesting model. We are the world's first not-for-profit ticketing platform, but we're also a registered charity. And we're a charity in Australia and in New Zealand, and we actually recently got our US charity license as well, which is really exciting. So we're soon to open up an office in Denver and go into the States and global. It's primarily a tech charity, a tech organization, and the software that we provide and the product and service that we provide is the event ticketing and management software that event organizers can use. So any kind of organizers from big festivals like Strawberry Fields, for example, use us, to conference organizers. A typical example is like gala dinners. So UN Women use us for all of their International Women's Day fundraisers events, to small event organizers that are doing yoga workshops or those kind of things. So that's the core product and the thing that we focus on. But all of the booking fee profits are then going towards education projects for these disadvantaged children that we've talked about. So it's quite a funny experience actually, because you're not really on the ground, you're not actually involved involved in the education of these minority groups, the day-to-day work that I'm involved in is a lot of, sales and talking to event organizers and solving their problems and issues. But by doing that, you're actually able to create this meaningful impact that we can really speak to. So yeah,
Yes.
super interesting, super unique, and yeah, I'm very fortunate.
It so is. And so how often, I'm so glad that you mentioned what you just did, because it beautifully allows me to kind of reiterate that. How often we're sitting in our desks and we think, well, what could I possibly do to be able to impact some of these places around the world that I probably will never go and visit? However, for, such as partnering with organizations such as your organization, we can actually impact just by doing what we normally do. Obviously, for those of us, we're going to talk a little bit more about the recovery of the event industry, because I know the event industry has certainly been hit hard, but there's recovery on the way, which is exciting. And I'm sure that there has been, because of the virtual uptake of so many more people now online, connections globally that may never have been made had they not kind of been forced to in that sense. But we can contribute. And so share a little bit more about, so in other words, if you are holding an event, so an in-person event, but also an online person event, Humanitix can be used to be able to ticket those events, both online and offline.
Exactly, yeah. So in-person events, online events, and more we're seeing hybrid events as well. Humanitix can be used as a registration platform, and that goes for free events as well. So there's a lot of councils and government organizations or other event organizers who are using us just for free events and for which there is no cost. And for the paid tickets and paid events, there is a booking fee, and the profit of the booking fee is what gets donated to one of our education projects.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Share a little bit more about some of the things that you're seeing in the event space, because you're right at the forefront. You're dealing, as you said, talking and speaking with event organizers each and every day. What are some of the exciting things that are happening? Maybe some changes in the industry that you can share with us today?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've really learnt through the pandemic is that live events will never go away. I think there was a time where we were all in lockdown and everyone was like trying to be optimistic and positive. So they said, oh yeah, like online events is the future. No one's going to, meet at the pub or go to this online conference in-person conference or networking anymore. But I think we've learned through 2020 that nothing beats face-to-face interaction and the energy and the vibes that you can get from in-person events, whatever type it may be. And so that really gives us confidence in terms of our choice to disrupt the ticketing industry as well, because it means that as long as there are events around, we will be able to direct the profits from the ticketing industry towards these social impact projects. And in terms of what's happening now in the event space in Australia and New Zealand, we are one of the luckiest people on the planet, I think, at the moment. Things are pretty normal both in Sydney and Auckland, and able to travel internationally between the two cities as well, which is really awesome. Especially towards the second half of the year, I'm seeing that there are a lot of big events that weren't able to go ahead last year, being planned. And so as I mentioned, Strawberry Fields is the big music festival that's happening at the end of October in New South Wales, which is really exciting. But there's all sorts, I think, in terms of the volumes that we're seeing, both in New Zealand and Australia, it's pretty much back to normal. Everyone's so keen to get out there.
Oh, they are. And what's really interesting, I mean, yesterday just on the news here in Melbourne, we now have a big major film being produced here that may not necessarily have done before. We've got, I think we are here in Melbourne, one of the only countries that is showing, and I can't remember the name, please don't hold that against me, but a musical that normally is being shown around the world, and the space is really coming forward in leaps and bounds with that as they're opening up. And you're absolutely right. And it's great to see. I think the art space is often one that doesn't get much recognition, and yet creativity in the arts is so important. You know, some of the conversations that I've had with people who very much specialize in innovation and ideation, tapping into our creative, brains is so important. And I think, as you said, that will never go away. And thank goodness. I mean, whoever knew that we would have the term travel bubble, 12 months ago? I mean, there's things that are popping up all over the with that, which is exciting. Now, I think what's really important too is recognizing that now, as things are starting to go more live and people are starting to have events, that there's also an and that goes with that some people used to talk about hybrid. There are opportunities that now, not just a local, in-person space that people can come to, but also those who may not be able to attend because they're international or wherever, can also attend. I have to say that I've enrolled in various courses and currently enrolled in courses that I probably never would have had the opportunity to enroll in were they not online, and using booking and so forth platform that you guys are offering. So there's always a silver lining to the that saying, and it's all so true. What about some of the things that you're hearing as far as some of the disruption? I love that word, disruption. What are you seeing? Or maybe what Humanitix is and when I say that word, I'm oscillating between the Aussie terminology, the ticks and the ticks, because what happens when I speak to someone with a Kiwi accent, as you have? I took to Siri on my phone. She goes, "I'm sorry, I cannot understand you," because I go back to the But what are some of the things that you're seeing, and maybe Humanitix is really kind of disrupting that ticketing space?
I think recently there's been, as I mentioned, a lot of hybrid events, which is really opening up events that were previously not available online to a bigger audience. So it's a potential global audience that's connected through the internet. One, I think, side effect or a bonus of that as well is people who might not have actually been able to attend live in-person events anyway because of their accessibility requirements are now also able to attend, and that's there's a lot more access for them via other means as well. And so that's actually one area that we're also very focused on, making live events and online events more accessible and inclusive for everyone. We actually participated in a Microsoft hackathon. I think it was back in 2018, and our CTO and our co-founder interviewed a bunch of event goers who did have accessibility requirements, and they all of them pretty much said that community inclusion was their kind of the most biggest issue that they were dealing with, and they'd had given up attending live events because it was just too hard. There was not enough information on how to attend the event, how to find the venue, didn't know if there was ramps available, if they had wheelchairs, etc. So we've built a accessibility module within our platform, so event organizers can easily provide information on how to whether they are able to cater to certain accessibility requirements. And on our website, where our event marketplace is hosted, event goers can then filter by those accessibility requirements and see if they can they'll be able to attend. So I think it's definitely opened up more, and people are more and more thinking about inclusion and accessibility side of things. So that's been really exciting to see.
Yeah, that's so good. And, now that the event coordinators are now seeing that and leveraging this hybrid platform, if you will, or the ability to be hybrid, which is in person as well as online events, I'd imagine that the back-end technology, which is obviously what Humanitix is also able to provide, is so important to be able to tap into, because there's probably things that some event coordinators don't even realize is possible when they're leveraging or working alongside partners partnering with your organisation. Now, it's interesting when I look back to the introduction that I mentioned, you talked about combined with scalable technologies, and that's one of the most powerful ways of generating sustainable social impact. Share a little bit more about scalable technology. What are you seeing happening here?
Yeah, so because we are a software as a service or a SaaS model, it's pretty low operating costs once you actually build the platform and then maintain it. And every day and every week we're rolling out new updates and making sure that we're solving issues for event organizers who are using us. But after that, we are able to essentially go global. And so once we're able to transact in all sorts of international currencies and have our charity licenses and all of the administrative stuff set up in different countries, we're essentially, able to scale exponentially. And so that means soon everyone who does ticketed events online would be able to use us, which is an amazing way of tapping into that global, $50-60 billion market, I think it is, per annum in the ticketing industry.
What's really good too, of course, is that if one of your clients is using your platform of ticketing and they are based in Australia, and then they transition across to New Zealand, and then maybe want to start to have events over in the US as well, that your technology now is there. By the way, let me just bring in Christine Rose's comment. So important to address root issues. Thanks, Jenny, and thank you, Anne-Marie Cross. You're so very welcome. Of course, we've got a few minutes left with Jenny. So if anyone is there watching, if you've got a question or you've got a comment that you would like to share, please do that now, and then I can bring that into the show. I know I certainly have gained so many insights and golden nuggets, which is one of the reasons why I love speaking to the members of Business Women Australia, because they really are at the forefront and leaders of their industry. So when you think about where the industry is going, you and your company are obviously now expanding into the US, and no doubt as other countries are slowly starting to open up again, are there some things that you see besides the hybrid model? Are there any other exciting things? Obviously, you don't want to disclose too many things that you might be working. What are some exciting things that you're seeing and can't wait for when you're thinking of the event industry, maybe in 2022 and beyond?
I think the exciting thing for me is the possibility that other organizations within the event industry, but also outside the event industry, may look to our model and how we've actually set up as a business, but entirely, 100% charity and not for profit model, and actually copy that. I think, if we see more and more of these kind of similar social enterprise models, and it already exists. For example, Thank You, as well as Who Gives a Crap. Those kind of brands are pretty much household names in Australia. And I think if we see that replicated more and more across different industries, that's what's really exciting. I think that's the kind of next evolution of business, because currently the way that I see the world is there is businesses where everything is for profit and make the most money as possible, and that's the goal. And then there's charities who are, I want to help people, I want to do good for the world, but there hasn't really been a really effective relationship previously. And so in the years to come, I'm really excited to see what other kind of products and services will enter that unique market.
Yeah, it's interesting that you should say that, Jenny. I've had a number of conversations with people across other different podcasts, and I'm sure here on Business Women Australia too. I think because what's happened around the world, it has really shown us that we may be on opposite sides of the planet, yet what happens on one side of the planet can completely shut down the entire globe. So whilst we are, different nations, possibly in different backgrounds and genders and so forth, we really are human beings. Can we please get on with each other? Can we please move, make decisions from the point of view that what we do today is going to impact not just ourselves, but someone, on the planet. And I love what you're saying there. And now even more important, because of some of the, developing countries, they really need our support. And this is such a great way. And I think this is what I really love what you're doing, is you're empowering them with education. People, and I've heard the saying before, they don't want to hand out. They want to hand out. They want to be empowered. Give us the choice to be able to educate. I mean, we may, or through you, using your service, you may put someone through an education that becomes a solicitor, that becomes an ambassador for communities of people that may not necessarily had an opportunity to ever have the choice of the choices that we have each and every day. And it's wonderful to be able to think that it just is so much more now than just profit. And it should be, it always should be actually, but now that we think it's not just about profit, it's about people, it's about our planet, it's about really being mindful that every single action, interaction, conversation, how is it positively impacting someone somewhere on the planet. So I've loved that. How can people find out more about you, about the company, Jenny?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. If you search up Jenny Chung, you should be able to find me. And you can find all details about Humanitix if you just go to humanitix.com. That's spelled Humanitix.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to Business Women Australia podcast. Want to become part of a dynamic collective of women who are passionate about business success and personal growth? Go to businesswomenaustralia.com.au/membership to apply. That's businesswomenaustralia.com.au/membership.